business, when I first started, I felt like I was wearing all the hats. And I was just like, I felt very overwhelmed, so overwhelmed that you were not seeing clearly anymore. And everything seems very cluttered in the brain. And so it was scary hiring somebody. It was scary for all the reasons you mentioned earlier. Like, will I be a good manager? Even today when I'm trying to like expand my team, I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have the systems in place? Do I look, all these ideas and barriers that are self-inflicted barriers. So, but yeah, I think, hiring somebody, your first step in hiring somebody should be done, and it should be done sooner than you think it should be done. Save up that money if you need to, but have that as an element for the near future, in my opinion. I agree with you.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about like the practice of outsourcing too. I mean, I feel like it's a muscle that can be built and be strengthened over time. And so it may be that you start just with like a one-time project too, that it's not something that's ongoing, that you're like, man, I am spending so much time trying to tweak my website and make it exactly what I want. Maybe I'll just hire somebody to come and like do the finishing touches and just take over this one-time project that has a clear beginning and end date. That way you can, you can budget for it, you can know what it's going to cost, and you just get in the practice of letting go of some things. Because once you taste that, once you're like, oh my gosh, like I just paid $500 to somebody to do exactly what I wanted, and it saved me literally like 2 weeks of work. Done. Done. And then you can repeat that over and over and over.
And a peace of mind, in my opinion. Just like, I feel like sometimes the stress of not knowing how to do something is far more overwhelming to me than actually getting the task done.
Oh gosh, yes.
So, and if you were to like talk to somebody who is looking for a virtual assistant, how would you help them figure out if they need one or not? And like, what would be some of the steps that they would take?
I mean, you need one.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you.
I'm just kidding. Everyone needs that. No, I mean, you have to be at a point. And that's the thing, is that, I mean, budget money is always a factor, right? And so I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. I think that you can outsource to people. You can also outsource to tools. That's kind of how we start. Your next hire, once you're ready for it, financially, I think is a big thing. And that's up to every person. Some people start their business and they need every single dollar that comes in. And I get that. But then that's where personal budgeting can come into play too. I think it's a conversation that we don't have a lot, whereas, why do I have to take so much out of the business every month that I'm making? Or could some stay in and maybe I work on my personal budget a little so I don't have to take as much out, so I can put some more back in. Reinvesting into the business is important. It's also important to pay yourself. I actually find that more people have trouble paying themselves than reinvesting back into the business.
Absolutely.
I guess we probably land on one or either side. So I'm also not a fan of not paying yourself any. I'm like, even if you're taking out like $100 a month, like just pay yourself something, because you'll get really, really frustrated if you're not. Okay, so then it's deciding what your actual budget is, which is something that you'll have to kind of look at yourself. Then it's kind of getting an idea of what are the tasks that I would outsource to somebody, right? Especially if it's going to be ongoing tasks. And one of the things that I love to, well, I'll be honest, I don't love to do it, but I think it's super necessary and I love the results that come from it, is to do a self-imposed time study. So I make myself do one like once a year. It's not fun. It's kind of annoying, but it's so eye-opening. And so I will literally track my time. I'll use a tool like Toggle, and I will track my time for an entire week and just see, where am I spending my time? And it is so eye-opening, because sometimes you think like, oh, I'm only spending, I spend a little bit of time every day responding to posts in my Facebook group or something, right? And then you go and you look and you're like, I spent 7 hours this week doing that, right? And it's like, wow, what could be gained if I got a community manager and I got that time back? What bigger vision things, what higher level tasks could I be doing if I outsource? So I think when it comes to deciding what you're going to do and what type of position, is it a general virtual assistant? Is it a copywriter? Is it a tech VA? What is it? Will be really eye-opening if you do a time study and start to just take away some of the things that you're doing so you can focus on higher level tasks. And then it's actually finding the VA, right? And so that's one of the things. We are currently building a marketplace to find virtual assistants. So that's one of the things that we're really passionate about, is connecting business owners with virtual assistants, with freelancers, and finding somebody that's a good cultural fit too. Like there's a couple marketplaces out there, but I feel like most of them are race to the bottom dollar, just very impersonal. And ours is going to really focus on community, cultural fits, trying to find a long-term person to help you in your business.
Instead of the Fiverr type, quick, easy access. How would you explain to somebody that this is what a virtual assistant does, and this is why you need them?
Yeah. So, I mean, like our technical definition is a virtual assistant is anyone that provides administrative, technical, or creative services remotely for small business owners. And I think there's a lot of benefits to the small business owner. First of all, a lot of business owners don't really fully understand the difference between an employee and a contractor, and how there's so much benefit to hiring contractors for your business. The fact that you can bring in an expert with their own systems, with their own tools, and no, you can't tell them, hey, you need to be working from 9 to 2 every day. But that's almost a benefit, because you're going to get them working in their zone of genius when they're able to, and you're not having to pay for equipment and insurance and all of the things, right, that come along with normal employees. So I think there's a lot of just, educating small business owners of what is independent contracting, which is what all of, these virtual assistants are. And then the next thing is just the idea of, okay, these are tasks that can happen remotely. And I think that 2020 was a huge shift in the mindset of people realizing, man, work really can be done, and done really well in a remote environment. And so I'm so happy, we've been using Zoom for years, and then the rest of the world now knows what it is, right? And I think it was a huge shift in people starting to understand, okay, people want to work remotely, people can work remotely and can do work really, really well.
That is really, really cool. So are there any other tips that you could give to our listeners today about something about virtual assistants or even building their business?
Yeah. One of our core values here is action over perfection. And I can tend to be a perfectionist, as I think most of us will. And I think that, you're going to get it wrong sometimes. You're going to mess up. You're going to hire the wrong person, or invest in the wrong program, or choose the wrong service, or launch a product that doesn't go well. But it's not so much about getting it perfect every time. It's just that you keep going forward motion, action, right? Keep taking those actions, because they do compound over time. So action over perfection. Sometimes you have to launch before it's perfect. Sometimes you have to step out before you feel 100% comfortable or confident. But that's where the real magic happens.
Absolutely. And also sometimes the questions that you're asking before you start and before you launch are answered in the imperfection launch. Exactly. And I say that with absolute experience right now. I did that with my own business. I launched a subscription program for law, and I did it without really it being perfect. But through that, I got a lot of the answers that I was waiting on. And I wasn't getting them. And so it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, I'm glad I just did that. And so, I completely agree with you that it is progress over perfection. So, and so before we say goodbye, I wanted to just ask you some quick, fun questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And what are some of your books that you love reading, whether it's professional or self-development or just fiction, just for fun?
I love business books. That's pretty much, I wish I had time for fiction, but I don't make time for fiction, I would say. So Clockwork, Mike Michalowicz, great books, systems, leaning into those systems. Austin McNeely wrote a book called From 6 to 7 Figures, and it's a lot about systems as well. And I really love to read things that I'm not naturally good at. So those 2 books were game changers in my business.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what are some of your favorite biz tools?
Tools for running my business?
Running.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're huge Canva fans. We use Canva all the time in the business. We recommend Dubsado to a lot of our students. That's a huge one for email. I love ConvertKit, and the ConvertKit for our email has been awesome. Part of it is I just really love the company. Like I used to go to their conferences every year, and I really believe in the mission of their company. I know a lot of people who've worked there, and I really like their company. So, we use Kajabi as our course platform. We've been really happy with that. Those are, some of the basic tools. Loom. I use Loom. Use Loom like every single day in the business.
I love
Slack for communication. So, those are the basic tools that we use.
Awesome. And if someone wants to contact you and say hello, where do they find you?
Yeah, so thevirtualsavvy.com is the best place to go. We have contact information there. I hang out on Instagram too at the Virtual Savvy.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your tips and wisdom. Thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks for having me.